I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and this is the bronze medal match of the 2025 Carcassonne Champions League between Germany's yzemaze and Thailand's Pakshe. It's going to be an equal battle between two master level players. It's going to be experience against youth. yzemaze have been playing this game for many years. They're also now in great shape as they managed to achieve a top 4 finish in the earlier Mindsports Olympiad Grand Prix Carcassonne tournaments a month ago. Pakshe has a very high rating, has started playing quite recently, only a couple of years ago. And I really should expect this to be a 50-50 chance for either side. Before we start, just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what happened before. So yzemaze has been playing this tournament very convincingly. He won his group in the group stage, so he went straight for the round of 16, where he defeated David Faraci, aka Lord Terrycloth, 2-0. And then he defeated quite convincingly Ilya Slonimsky to only then fall prey to the reigning champion, someone you know, in the semifinals. Pakshe had a rougher ride. They lost a couple of games in the preliminary stages. But in the playoffs, they first of all defeated Hydro Baby of Taiwan. Then they defeated Ukraine's Samuelson. Then they barely squeaked past my teammate Nepamai. That was quite an exciting duel. And then I made sure to avenge my teammate in the semifinals, and as a result, here we are. Do let me know as usual in the chat who you're rooting for and who you think is going to win. I would have to put yzemaze maybe like a 55% favor, despite the fact that Pakshe currently has the high rating. The reason why I feel that way is because whenever there's like a youth versus experience clash in a later tournament stage, when there's a lot of stake, generally experience tends to have the upper hand, but we could be proven wrong. So the German with his traditional yellow meeples, a 1-point city. Pakshe with the starting player advantage has already 4 points on the scoreboard. There's a road which is now about to be equalized. So overall a slightly better opening for Pakshe. This city looks uninspiring for now for yzemaze. It will take quite a while to build up. The first monitor of the game goes for the Thai player for 3 points, and also a chance to go ahead and attack the road over here. Now a forced move with the quadruple city tile, continuing the German city. The roads have now been unified, which actually is in German's player interest because this square here is a little bit sensitive. It could be blocked. So yellow just made sure that red does not get a crossroads and then later try to block 2 of yellow's meeples. Pakshe now with the city tile, really only one reasonable move with it, because obviously he's not going to go over here. He's not going to continue yellow city. He's probably going to go over here, start a new one like this. Hi, Devaka. The Thai player is thinking about this for some reason. Well, I guess there are 2 reasonable moves. You can either go like this and start a new city, or you can turn it the other way. I do like this move much more than the alternative, simply because he's going to be getting extra points once he continues this city. So that's an efficient way of building up things. yzemaze with a good-looking tile, but not really a great place to use it. And he goes on Pakshe's monastery, which is pretty interesting. So I guess there's some ideas of maybe putting some pressure against this square, putting some pressure against this square, and this is the only way how he can build up the city without the fear of being obstructed. The downside, of course, is that he helps Pakshe with his monastery, who now also makes a great move, setting up another monastery spot. Another city for yzemaze. He's not in a hurry to finish this one. First of all, because you want to keep multiple cities open, you know, for efficient building in case you get one of those extender tiles. But also because a city plus a road tile would go really, really well over here to try and block two of Pakshe's meeples. Also, this monastery spot over here could be used by not only the Thai player, but also by the German. A starting tile for red. Not an obvious place to place it. I guess you could continue your city, but that would make the square way, way, way too vulnerable. But if you don't go there, where do you go exactly? Well, one idea is to go here, actually, and start a new city like this. This would also be protecting the square somewhat, and also putting some pressure against this guy over here. The downside, though, if you go over here, there's some ways of pressuring this city meeple. So I'm not sure how much I'll like that. So probably the safest move is simply ignoring everything and starting a new city at the bottom. This would also create a 6-point road for one of the parties to grab, and that would slightly benefit red rather than yellow. It does seem to be my move of choice. This move I do not like one bit. The reason why I don't like this move, even though it might be work out, is not so much that it leaves a road for yellow to grab, which it does. Yellow is going to go here now, or here. No, here at the bottom, of course, trying to take 4 points for the road, put some pressure on the square. But the reason why I don't really like this move is because yellow can easily get a city cap or some sort of other city tile that would put pressure on both squares simultaneously. So normally in the opening, you really want to avoid giving your opponents the opportunity to attack two squares simultaneously. But in any case, yellow does not get a tile to do so. And red gets a very, very interesting opportunity here. So that's a triple city, and he needs to make a decision. Does he go over here and try to unite all the cities here? Or does he do something like this? He could also ignore everything and just go over here and try to break yellow cities at the top. The last move seems to be a bit weaker to me because this city at the top already kind of looks broken. I mean, it's not broken, but it's really a long way before it can become a threat. And this move over here, it would actually pose some threats of his own, and that's why he does this. This move over here by yzemaze, I'm really, really surprised. So he sort of restricts this monastery square a little bit, and now it ends up backfiring because he would have gotten the monastery that fits there. But now the problem with this move, first of all, there's this road end which is up for grabs for Pakshe, which you can use very, very easily to equalize this yellow road. But also because this restriction is really not that powerful, it's very high variance. There's still 2 tiles remaining that fit there. And whoever draws it first, they're just going to put it over here. And it's 9 points. And 9 points is a lot of points in pretty much any position. So for example, if red gets the road monastery, I think that red's going to have already a big advantage. Haine Pamai. Red now also needs to make a decision. And that's an interesting one. Actually, I did not see that coming. So note how red chooses not to fight for a big city over here. If he were to get a triple city first, he would have done it. But the reason why red did not want to go like this is because the quadruple city has gone out, and so have 2 other triple city tiles. So if you go for the idea of turning the triangle upward and trying to eat up a big city, there is some potential for yellow to go over here and to block the square and block 3 of Pakshe's meeples. The downside of this move is that the square might end up blocked still, but if that happens, I don't think it's too bad for red. So red's going to lose 2 meeples, this one, and yellow's going to lose just 1, but he's going to have excellent compensation for this meeple disadvantage because this city can grow for many, many, many points. This monastery has already 8 points. I guess if this square is blocked, then this here monastery placement becomes a bit more favorable for yellow. The reason for this is as follows. Yellow would want to use a monastery over here, but he might be reluctant to do so under current conditions because this would also help red's monastery. But if red's monastery were to already get blocked on another square over here, then going over here for yellow would be a pretty much no-brainer, because yellow would not be giving red a meeple back. So some players exchange quick points, finish their construction projects. 6 points for the city at the bottom for Pakshe. 8 points on the left for yzemaze. And now Pakshe with a very, very interesting tile. All 4 starting tiles have gone out, which means that if red so chooses, he can go over here and try and block this square, blocking his own road, but also blocking yellow's monastery, and then hoping to get one more curve that would connect this guy to his blocked segment of the road. But a question worth asking, is it worth it? And he decides that it is. I do not have the answer to that. I was surprised that this move did not come with a farmer, because it looks like the main field with these 2 cities over here and a bunch of green squares would be worth a meeple investment. Red decides to postpone that. And now he tries to really, really work around the square. So the idea of this move, even though it in the short term helps yzemaze's scoring potential, the idea is to go over here and maybe stick something like a cow over here, like a triple city, committing this square to either a curve or a dagger tile, simply to disallow yzemaze recovering his meeple by drawing a crossroads. Yellow looks like he's saving the square, but he really isn't. Of course, yellow knows that there's nothing that fits over there anymore. This move simply gives him a monastery point, and it also starts harassing this city, creating a blocking platform against it. And actually, just 3 straight lines, like this, like this, like this, would block this meeple permanently. So Pakshe should be adding this tile over here. He might be tempted to go over here for the purposes of recovering his meeple, but that would not be a good move. That would be too big of a point sacrifice. Whereas this move looks fairly safe. And this is exactly what he does, but yzemaze gets himself a crossroads, so he manages to bail himself out of the dangerous situation. He will not be at a meeple disadvantage. And as a result, this move proves to be wasted. Well, it's not entirely wasted, really, because we know that yellow could have used this tile for scoring elsewhere. For example, yellow could have used this tile to score 3 points. And instead of scoring 3, yellow scored 1. So this tile did give some dividends for red. Also wanted to point out something interesting about the orientation of this curve. The German here is being precise. If he were to turn the curve the other way, he would be making the field a little bit too big incorporating this city cap into the main field, and it's not something that yellow wanted to do at that position, given the fact that red was threatening to trap his meeple. Now, of course, it's a different story now that yellow's meeple is not going to be trapped. But even though still the long-term meeple majority is likely to stay with the Thai player, because that city at the top looks like it's going to still take a while to become a threat, whereas red can easily recover these meeples over here. This monastery, however, could also stay there for quite a while. And in most scenarios, in fact, this monastery does not get completed at all. Because I can't see Pakshe going over here, because that would be relinquishing points. But then I can't see yzemaze going here either, because that would be giving his opponent a meeple back. So as it stands, neither side is interested in filling this square. Pakshe with a crossroad tile, looking to score a little bit, or rather recover his meeple. We're running short on crossroads, so we really don't have the luxury of just taking quick points. Gotta get that second meeple in hand. And this is exactly what he does. Yellow finishes a city, gets himself the equality on the scoreboard and a meeple majority, and also tries to put some pressure on this square. There is now actually only one vanilla city cap that fits there, and 2 splitters. So instead of waiting for one of the 3 remaining city caps that fit into that square, it would make sense more for Pakshe to go here now and try to give him some more options for completing this city. It would have its price, because it would make this city a bit more vulnerable to invasions. But with a city this size, it's better to be invaded than to be blocked. "35 seconds remaining on Pakshe's clock. I am worried a bit about his time management here. Now, of course, his time bank will be replenished by 45 seconds every turn. But you really want to keep yourself above the 1 minute mark this early in the game. Because in case there is a genuinely difficult position, which this one wasn't, then you want to have your time bank for tile counting and stuff like this. Note how yzemaze decides to sacrifice 2 points to start blocking this city. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Pakshe gets a 6-point monastery, which is absolutely lovely for them. Very likely to be completed, and even if it doesn't, that's a reasonable investment of a meeple. Yellow surprises me massively. Oh, I guess yellow's idea was to go over here and take advantage of the fact that there are no starting tiles remaining. So the standard move in this position, which I still think was the better move, was to simply go over here, make that restriction of the square first, and then try to make the block complete. But given the fact that there are no starting tiles remaining, going over here and trying to threaten full block also made sense. Actually, maybe even made even more sense. But Pakshe gets himself a fantastic tile that helps him to continue the city and still have threats of completing it. There's still plenty of Dorito tiles, plenty of city caps, plenty of tiles of all kinds that go there. And now Pakshe is trying to threaten the completion of the city. And look at the precision from yzemaze here. So the standard block in this position would be to turn the curve the other way, in which case Pakshe would have gotten this dagger and would have finished the city. But the German is counting tiles precisely, and he knows that if you rotate the tile this way, there is only one tile in the deck, this one mainly, the butterfly tile, that helps Pakshe complete the city, because there are no starting tiles left. So this is how, whenever there's one type of tile which is expired very early, like it is in this case, then it just really changes the strategy for both sides. Not so much, no, it doesn't change the strategy actually. It does a little bit, but it changes the tactics. It changes the blocking tactics, and they become a bit counterintuitive. So a move like this normally is considered to be a defense because there's 6 tiles that fit into the square, but 5 of them have been drawn. So now there's only a 50-50 chance of Pakshe getting a tile that fits there. If he does, the city at this point is big enough for this to be a game-winning advantage, but I'm pretty sure that yellow is not going to allow that to happen. He's going to go here and try to block that square completely. That would be my guess. Or at least this is what he's going to try and do eventually. Yellow just trying to obstruct red's monastery. Still plenty of curves that fit there. And by plenty, I mean 2 actually. It's not really that plenty at all. A splitter for the Thai player? Really no great way to use it. So probably at this point we need to discard the splitter. Or you know what? We can actually go here. Is that really good though? So the purpose of this move would be trying to block that square a little bit. Actually, I think that would be pretty good. An alternative for red is to discard the splitter tile somewhere else, here for example. But what you don't want to be doing as red, you really don't want to be spending your last meeple. In this position, keeping a meeple in hand is paramount for both sides, for red especially. Because with the 9-pointer available in the center of the board, either party must be prepared to take advantage of it. Red's still struggling to deploy a splitter, and rightfully so. There's really no good move with this tile, even though this is statistically shown to be the second best tile in Carcassonne, or the second most useful tile in Carcassonne. Second right after the Road Monastery. But that's why I mentioned the time management earlier. So by making some more obvious moves a little bit quicker, he would have made himself a bit, say, how would I say this? Basically, he would have saved himself some nerves. Both players are exchanging quick points. And Pakshe did find a good move. So the reason why I got to discard the tile there is because at a meeple minority, you really don't want to be building big fields. So there's a field over here, there's a field over here, there's potentially a field over here if the city gets completed. But if the city gets completed, then the red probably wins anyway. And so with his meeple majority, yzemaze cannot really do much better than claim 6 or 9 points towards the end of the game, and this is still a manageable disadvantage for Pakshe to deal with. Now I'm thinking about this if I'm red. Maybe now it's not the worst idea to actually go here and prepare to finish your monastery with the Road Monastery. He could also just go over here and try and block yzemaze's meeple on the left, which is also a worthwhile endeavor. In fact, if he does this, which I think he should have, yep. If he were to have done that, you would have reduced the number of city caps that fit there so drastically. In fact, after this dagger have been drawn, there would have been only one city cap that fits into this square. So I think a blocking opportunity missed for Pakshe there. He does prepare the recovery of his monastery meeple, which makes sense. It was my initial suggestion anyway, but blocking yellow's meeple seemed to be more important. Because you got to realize that we're running very short on city plus road tiles, especially city plus road city caps. So even a partial block is much more potent than usual. Yellow, with the last Dorito tile in the game, with the last road Dorito tile in the game rather, has a variety of options. He could simply continue the city at the bottom, which is what he's going to do. Or he could actually go here and try to create some sort of blocking platform against this square. That would also make a lot of sense. Because as yzemaze, you really don't want to be playing the 50-50 game. At some point, you gotta block the squares. There's still a tile that fits there. There was also an alternative to try and invade the big city, but since we're running so short on Doritos, this invasion of the city on the right could easily backfire for whichever party that tries to accomplish that. The penultimate curve drawn by Pakshe to continue his monastery, and the ultimate, or the last curve, is drawn by yzemaze, who now needs to make a strategic decision. So do we go here? Is it time to start dropping farmers? Do we put pressure against this monastery? Or do we go over here and drop a farmer like this, preparing to complete our own city and maybe get some damage control in case our opponent completes his? This move makes the most sense to me. And then maybe if we try to be really efficient, we want to wait for the crossroads to go over here. Oh, this is an even better idea, but I wish he would have done that with a farmer, just to incorporate some damage control into his decision making. So that's a really smart move when it comes to, you know, the blocking probabilities, because he realizes that there are a few straight lines remaining. Pakshe gets one, and he cannot go over here because there are no more starting tiles remaining. And there's still one more straight line for yellow to try and accomplish this block. Yeah, I would have definitely preferred this move with a farmer. Another reason for this is because sometimes this field, worth potentially 12 points if all the city gets completed, gonna get unified with some other fields, with some road monasteries. For example, there is a scenario how this field and this field could merge. Pakshe is now trying to build up his monastery in a very smart way. He's now trying to complete a monastery with another monastery. So there's still 3 tiles that fit there. There is still technically the vanilla city cap, which would also go there, because you know what? If red gets the vanilla city cap, he can go over here, finish his monastery, and drop a farmer, because this 6-point field, which is going to be a potentially 9-point field after the completion of this hypothetical city, that's going to be really valuable as well. Pakshe with a bit of a scoring tile, but no good place to use it. He could go over here, drop his last meeple for 9 points. I don't think he can afford to do this. He needs to get one of these monasteries first. So probably as red, I'm thinking of a move like this. Or even better, a move like this, simply not allowing yzemaze to finish his 6-point city and get a meeple back. Note how the German managed to successfully block red city. And there we go. Now the game is turning around. So red tries blocking yellow, which is very smart, because there are no splitter tiles available to fit into this square. So this meeple, even though it's going to be getting more points, maybe with a tube going over here, picking off this shielded tile, at the very least, it's not going to give yzemaze a meeple back. Yellow with the first road monastery of the game, but he's not in a hurry to fill that square, and I wonder why. What other moves could he have in mind? And I think, actually, he's contemplating something quite interesting. Instead of going over here and taking 9 points and giving his opponent a meeple back, he might be interested in going over here, yep, and dropping a 15-point farmer. And his idea is that he wants to then take something like a straight line and then restrict the square a little bit more, and then make sure that Pakshe can free up only one of his monastery meeples, even though it's going to be with a lot of points. Like if Pakshe gets the other road monastery, he's going to score 18. It's 9 for this guy, 9 for this guy. But the idea of yzemaze here is that this farmer scores so much, and potentially even more actually, with something like a straight line and another road monastery. That would be truly spectacular. That he's planning to outrun his opponent's monasteries. So the farm has currently 5 completed cities on it for 15 points. It should stay like this in all likelihood. yzemaze has slightly more points on the cities compared to Red's blocked city, which now is not going to grow. Note that Red also got himself the last city cap that fit into this square, so it was quite wise for a German to block it. And the Road Monastery is indeed drawn by Pakshe. Yes, he's able to free up only one of his meeple, but still that's a great, great effect. And now that he's 20 points ahead on the scoreboard and he has an extra meeple to play with, it should be a game which Pakshe is going to win. But there's still some rooms for mistakes. A way how Pakshe could lose this, if they try too hard to attack the field, because, 15 points are very enticing, and maybe they drop a 0-point farmer, and then their attack is not successful, then they could easily lose this. Actually, just by pure points, Pakshe is not that much ahead. So let's figure this out. So 20 extra for Pakshe, right? So these monasteries cancel each other out. Oh yeah, Pakshe also has a 5-point road. And he also has a 7-point city, which compensates this 7-point city. So this is equal. And yzemaze has a 5-point city. So everything on the board is equal except for this field. This field is worth 15. Yeah, so the German is down 5 points and a meeple. I mean, there should not really be a way to come back from that. Unless I see one idea. yzemaze can go over here with a splitter tile and try to attack this city and then draw the last Dorito to connect to the city and overrun it with 2 versus 1 majority. That would be 16 points or something. That actually could give it to him. But the Thai player is playing very precisely. So first of all, he's picking off an empty city cap, which was in yzemaze's field. It's also quite instructive. He chooses not to attack the field, even though the field is the most valuable feature. He simply chooses to score 3 points for the city and give himself a decent chance of completing it. There's still one vanilla city cap, there's still a splitter tile, and even if yzemaze draws both of those, at the very least now, yellow is not able to go over here, and yellow is not able to score 8 points. So yellow will only be able to score 4 points. With a hypothetical sequence of 2 city caps, even if he draws them. From yellow's perspective, I really don't even know what to recommend. Probably we gotta hope that our opponent just does not draw city caps. So the move that I see from yellow is simply adding 2 points to myself, and then just patiently waiting for that splitter. There's nothing really that we can do about any of these things. Yeah, he gets himself an extra city, a couple of extra city points, but red gets the splitter immediately, and with that is going to complete an 8-pointer, start a new one. You have to meeple the city cap there. The Thai player is being really precise. And there's really nothing that yzemaze can do here. It looks like this farm could grow, like maybe by going over here with a curve and meepling a road or something, but there are no curves. That's the tragedy of it. So it's an excellent geometrical idea earlier on. It just simply doesn't work due to the nature of the tiles remaining. Yellow just blocks red city, which makes all the sense in the world, since there is still one vanilla city cap remaining for its completion, but now the city is completely blocked. Yellow scores 2 points for a city, which is the best that he can do. Pakshe is looking to meeple something, really not a great tile for him. Not that it matters. He probably just needs to discard it somewhere, or just go ahead and score a 3-point field, maybe here, or here, or here. The most important thing is just don't lose on time. He simply discards the tile, which actually makes some sense. Because he knew that there was a monastery remaining, and with a monastery you can score a little bit more. Yellow gets the monastery, he's going to get 5 points at the top. There isn't a better use for it, and the final vanilla city cap is drawn by Pakshe for a 3-point city. It's also interesting how nobody managed to claim the 6-point field at the bottom, simply because there were no road tiles remaining to do so. And roughly 10 points should be the difference, if I'm not mistaken, in favor of the Thai player. Hi, Ian. Well, yeah, I think I may have forgotten to tell you all that this is a best of 5. Unlike most of the game in this tournament, which were best of 3, the later stages, everything from quarterfinals and onwards, is best of 5. So it's likely that we're here for a long time. Five points is the difference. Which actually now makes me think. Was there a way to win? No, there really wasn't, yeah. And this is also like super instructive that Pakshe was really precise. So he did not drop any farmers, realizing that he could outrun. If Pakshe were to be... If he were to follow the natural Carcassonne player's instinct and maybe take this tile and go over here and drop a farmer, he would actually have lost the game. Because his farmer would have remained stranded for 3 points. Anyway, so looks like a very high-level game from both players. The Thai player takes the first one. Over 5,000 games of experience in just under 2 years. No, like just over 1 year. That's really a lot of games. I'm not sure if the players have agreed on a break or not. If they have, it's not going to last more than a couple of minutes. Oh, thank you, Amiris, for confirming that 3 minutes is the break, which probably have elapsed by now. Oh, right, I missed this message in the chat here. I tend to take breaks between every single of my tournament games to not only restock hot liquids, but also to just really relieve the stress. In tournament games require just way more concentration than casual games. 3 minutes on the dot. The German is starting this one. Claims a road for 2 points with a bright yellow meeple right in the center of the screen. Pakshe is probably looking to respond with the Lithuanian opening, which is all the rage these days, limiting the options for the city cap. yzemaze with a fantastic tile, the first monastery of the game. He indirectly continues the road, scores 3 points outright, and also controls Pakshe's road. In a straight line for the Thai player, really not a good place to use it. Probably here to try and exert, albeit minimal, but still pressure on this square. Or maybe here to exert, albeit minimal, but pressure on this square. The main thing not to do here is just to not continue the road, because it would destroy the integrity of this road and also help the monastery of your opponents and so on. Yzemaze finishes his road on one side, covers it up, and then also starts putting additional pressure on the square. And really there's not a lot that the Thai player can do about this, or maybe there is. I mean, we don't do anything here, we just wait. So we could go here, try to put some pressure on this square, but I think what's far better is just going over here and starting to put some pressure on this square. Because this meeple is going to be truly blockable, whereas this meeple, not really. I know that some players might be encouraged to go over here, but if you got to ask yourself, like, how often do you really manage to block two meeples of your opponent? And the answer is probably something like 2% of the time. Pakshe with a straight line. Now it's a good tile for him. I mean, good is a bit of a stretch, but it's a usable tile. This road for 3 points actually looks really, really good. It already has a 4th point attached to it. If you're going to get a curve, then you get a platform to connect to your opponent's city. You're also actually putting some pressure on this square in a more meaningful way. So if red goes over here, then red can get a curve and try to force Yzemaze to use a road end to help his road. Because obviously yellow will be incentivized to fill this square to get out both of his meeples. You're going to see what I mean in a few seconds when it happens actually on the board. In the meantime, the German is developing the city in a rather interesting way. So he goes to the kind of standard lip-shaped city. There should be enough time, most of the time, for red to respond to this by going over here and meepling one of the city caps. The top city cap will be more precise for the variety of reasons. But an alternative for ice here was trying to go over here and exert some additional pressure for this square. Yeah, so the Thai player is being really, really precise. It's a bit long to explain, but basically this meeple here is a little bit better than the meeple at the bottom. Actually, maybe it's not that long to explain. So, okay, so here's the explanation. So we know that yellow is incentivized to go over here, which he just did, to try and restrict this meeple here from Pakshe. And so this means that yellow is going to not go over here. And this gives us more time to either get a Dorito tile to connect to the city or to get a city cap tile to try and block that square. That said, as Yzemaze, I still would have preferred this move actually, trying to still complete the city and maybe not to be so over-focused on going over here. And look at this. It's going to match her. It's going to matter a lot, because if red were to have gone over here, then the move that red is about to play would not have been possible. So red is now going to go either here or here. Here is a little bit more precise because he's giving himself more option to connect to the city. And if he goes over here, which also makes sense, he leaves yellow the option of going with a couple of Doritos and trying to overrun the big city like this with this meeple through the square. But the main point that I wanted to make, if only the German was a bit more precise and actually placed this tile over here, then this idea would not have been possible in the first place. In any case, it's still a decent position for yellow. He still has a slight advantage in this position, and he still could technically draw a splitter tile to finish his big city before Pakshe gets one of the many, many remaining Doritos. But instead of just running away with the game, he's going to have a slight advantage. Now, by far the best move that I see is going over here, continuing his city, putting additional pressure against this square, and also having some real ideas of getting an extender and a triangle and a triple city, and still using this meeple to win the majority in this big city on the left. But instead, he makes a move which is completely inexplicable to me. So we have our first truly big mistake of the game. There's just no good reason to do this. I mean, it's just a 1-point city. Like, what's the deal with the 1-point city? It's not a good city. Like, what was wrong? I don't get it. What was wrong with that idea? I'm not sure. There must have been a reason why the German didn't like this move. So I know that he's not worried about the safety of this meeple. The reason why he's not worried, so let's say if Pakshe were to go here with a straight line, then he can't really do that because it's not in Pakshe's interest to open a platform for yellow to reconnect to the city and reclaim the majority. But then still, why not just go here and threaten this city? And then also threaten the block of your opponent's meeple. I don't get this. Moreover, this move over here, like, it's not a really good city because it's also, well, first of all, it's 1 point. It's nothing special. Well, it ends up actually becoming much better as he's now exerting some pressure on this square. But still, before this tile was drawn, he was actually indirectly continuing his opponent's road because this tile very often goes here. In any case, so yellow eventually completes his city and he actually gets the advantage. Still, red now in a bit of a pickle here. He needs to save one of his multiple meeples because this guy's threatened a lot. And I think we have to prioritize this. If we just go here, then we can still get the dagger tile. We can get a way to get our road meeple back. We can drop some farmers maybe. You know what? It's not the craziest idea, actually, to go over here and drop a farmer right now. And I genuinely think it is the best move for red. So the reason why I want to drop a farmer on this 3-point field is because when you almost inevitably draw a tile that goes over here, wow, and he finds it. I'm really impressed, actually. So the reason you want to do this in anticipation, because once the square is filled, then this farmer is going to be at least 9 points. And look at Ice here. So he's going for a 3-point monastery. He's foregoing this spot, and he's foregoing this spot. And I wonder if this is one of those moments where actually stacking is not all the rage that it seems, because this is a little bit sensitive. He could get 2 of his meeples blocked. Red, in the meantime, makes an excellent move. Instead of finishing his city straight up, he continues it indirectly whilst also saving his road. There are now 3 tiles that fit into this square. Now watch Pakshe go here. Or maybe here, actually. That could be pretty... Oh, but yeah, obviously, I forgot about this square. I forgot because, like, I didn't really expect him to draw the requisite tile too soon. But look at this. The German gets himself a straight line, but he does not meeple it, which actually puzzles me. Because as yellow, I think you want to meeple it to try and threaten some interesting things against your opponent's road. Maybe he wants to get a curve first to go here and then meeple that road later. That could also work. Yeah, and I guess if you meeple it too soon, red could get something like a horse tile, go over here, and then try and pressure this square and maybe even block 2 of yellow's meeples. Divaka is saying, I don't like such a move with 1-point road as red did. Are you referring to this one? I presume it has to be this one, right? Because that was the only 1-point road that was there. Well, it's really not about liking. It just has shown to be the strongest response. Because very often you do get those extra road points. Yeah, and in the opening, so if you don't meeple the road, the risk is that whenever the city cap is taken, then your opponent gets a curve, places it like this, and gets them an easy 4-point road. So it's a very defensive placement. Now we can see that finally the German manages to continue his monasteries, equalize the road of Pakshe, and Suddenly it's a good position for yellow again. Actually, it's a great position for yellow again. Wait, why am I saying again? Yellow had the advantage all the time. But you know what? Before this move, there were still some chances, for example, to Pakshe to go here. If he were to draw this tile like one bit sooner, then this would have been a different position. But it really hurts for red to lose this road. And even if a crossroads is played here, it doesn't really matter. These monasteries are looking really, really good now. There's also a spot for a third one. So how does red win this? Well, how about we start by continuing our city? Because actually this square is also sensitive. But this is not the only possible move. Another alternative that he's considering is going maybe over here, sacrificing a couple of points, but then breaking the integrity of yellow city. In this particular instance, I would advise against this, just because he needs to score himself. And also, this city is not as dangerous as it normally would have been, because there are only 4 Doritos remaining, which is not a lot with 40 tiles still in the deck. So this city is likely to be completed, but not too soon. And we might still have a chance to create some threats against it. Also, let's say if we go over here, it's now very difficult for our opponents to invade the city. Yep, exactly. So instead, the German might be inclined to block this. And it's a very interesting question. So do we actually go here? How big is the threat of our opponents completing the city? If we go here, then we'll leave only 2 tiles for our opponents to complete the city. So instead, yellow decided he does not want too much variance. He's going to allow the city completion for Pakshe, but he's going to score a couple of points extra at the top, and this also has an additional purpose. He wants to get something like a quadruple city tile and try and block this meeple by blocking this square. In the meantime, yellow is getting himself one step closer to a rhombus-shaped city. He's just got to draw one of the 3 Doritos or one of the 2 splitters. And then he's going to complete the city. A bit of an awkward tile for ice because he does not have ways to score points. But he has some interesting ideas. So he could go here and drop a farmer trying to connect through this square, which is actually not that easy to block. And maybe he can get himself a road monastery and do this sort of stuff. Okay, he chooses the 2 quick points. It comes at the expense of this city a little bit, at the safety of this city. It could be attacked now, but it's not such a big deal with a large number of city caps remaining. And now the Thai player is, for the first time, getting a substantial lead on the scoreboard. Finishes an 8-point city, starts a new one. Ice immediately tries to thwart the development of that city, which is a wise decision. The Thai player is still ahead in this one, and actually not really a productive place to use this tile. So maybe we have to do something like this. Start a new city, but that looks kind of bad, actually. There are just really no good moves in this position. It could be enticing to go here, but then you also put additional pressure on your city square, so I'm not sure how much I'll like that, but maybe you just have to do it. Because really they are only 4 legal places in the board where you can place this tile. Here, 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 here. This doesn't do anything. This is positively counterproductive. This is interesting, but there are a couple of reasons why it's actually not such a great move. So I think this is what we have to do, although it's really, really unpleasant. Now, this idea is quite nice. It sets up a city, which is actually quite hard to block. It also sets up a 4-point road, but that 4-point road is precisely the reason why I would make this move as only my second choice. So if you go over here and you do end up drawing a crossroads, then you kind of have to take the 4 points for this road. But then you also need the crossroads over here to finish your own road. So I don't like the idea of there being a spot to use the triple city crossroads on the board other than the spot that you already need. Well, there's a 3-point spot for it anyway. And he does find what I think is the best move, or at the very least, the least worst move. Ice is now going to commit some blocking things. Maybe going over here, starting to block this square, or going over here, starting to block this square. He chooses to start from the top. Now this meeple cannot use a splitter to separate himself from what is looking to become a piece of junk. I mean, Pakshe can still finish the city, right? If he gets a city cap, there's still a bunch of those. And if he gets himself a tile that goes over here. But look at what happened. This was very interesting sequence of events here. Ice drew all the crossroads, and so he used it to free up his road meeple, whilst Pakshe's longer road is going to stay trapped here. This is beautiful. So a long-term meeple advantage is going to be achieved for the Thai player, for the German rather. But Pakshe is doing a fantastic job on the field. With this move, he's also giving himself a really good chance of completing the city at the top. There's still 2 road Doritos available over here, and still 1 horse tile. And this city is already, this field is already worth 9 points. This field is worth 9 points. With a curve, he's going to get this city into the field. So despite the blocked meeple of red, I'm really liking red's position here. But nothing is decided. A lot depends on the road Doritos. Because if red draws the road Dorito, he's going to get himself 10 points, a meeple back, an extra city in his farm, and that would be very difficult to deal with. But if yellow gets the road Dorito, we need not forget the city at the bottom. Yellow can finish it for at least 12 points, if not more. Red now with a difficult tile to place. I wonder if it makes sense to go here, to just start restricting our opponent's options. Yeah, I rather like it. So there's still 1 field Dorito that goes there, and there's still a splitter tile that goes there. But maybe the idea for Pakshe is that it's now harder for Ice to draw both the road Doritos to deny red the city, and the field Doritos to finish the city himself. So the most likely outcome at this point is that either both sides complete this city or nobody does. That said though, the city of red at the top is actually more vulnerable than the city of yellow. But yellow of course rightfully tries and block red city, but red immediately defends. Yellow gets the shielded road Dorito tile, which Pakshe absolutely would have loved. Still 1 more tile to go there. But red gets himself a chance to add a couple of points. Yellow gets himself a chance to add a couple of points. Or I wonder if it's crazy to go over here actually and start another city. So we're running short on Doritos, and maybe this construction project is not as enticing as it may seem at first. But you know what? If we do go here, it actually makes it much harder for our opponents to block this city. Yeah, and he goes for it. I really like this idea. And it's also important to understand that this city is already scoring 5 points, which is not a terrible investment of a meeple at this stage of the game. And just having the threat of completing the city is nice. With another road Dorito, for example, he could even have this city blocked, but then complete this one. And there are also a couple of big tiles available. Well, there's the cow and there's the quadruple city tile. 1 cow to be exact. Pakshe makes a very interesting move. I hope that he has thought this through. Honestly, it looks kind of reckless at first. Because actually, like, very often, if there's something that I've learned... So there's one thing that I've learned in Carcassonne, which I can't rationally explain. Like, I can't mathematically explain why this works. But whenever you start a city with a Dorito tile, just like this, with the purpose of blocking your opponent, often, very often, you get blocked yourself. So let's see if this is what happens. Well, I guess actually has a pretty easy move to counter this. Just go over here, eh? Maybe even with a farmer. No, a farmer is not necessary. Actually, no, we can use a farmer, and then it's just quite difficult for red to draw something that fits there. Well, I guess the idea of this move is to make sure that the German cannot go over here with a cow. But no, he still can't. Yeah, it really doesn't make sense why he would place the meeple over here to me. Oh, I guess he does not want ice to get a city cap and save this 8-point city whilst also protecting this one. Yeah, that must be it. But yeah, I wonder if it was just better to go over here and make a bit of a more standard block. Okay, it's going to be pretty interesting. Well, Pakshe is still a favorite to actually complete this block, because he has a variety of ideas to do this. First of all, if Pakshe gets a cow, he can go here and block his meeple together with ices, which would just block everything in this position. But he can also still get something like a umbrella tile, which would block this city and severely restrict the other one. Red with a bit of an interesting block here. Chooses to not expand his field, which I actually severely dislike. To be honest, I can't even begin to describe how much I dislike this move. Yeah, I think there was a really big missed opportunity for Reds. Ice now finishes his city, which is quite unfortunate for Red, actually. Now, it's not a big deal for Red because Red ends up equalizing his bottom meeple anyway. The German is ahead 18 points on the scoreboard. Still, Red can absolutely win this, but this really damages his chances. The reason why this is so unpleasant to deal with for Red is because of the field geometry. You see, if Red were to go with this curve over here, he would have, first of all, have himself one more city on the field, but then his field would have been so much safer from invasions. But now there's this platform for yellow to invade in a variety of ways, and this is probably the first really big mistake of the Thai player. Even though it's a subtle one, but it's one that's going to have a lot of consequences. Another imprecision by Pakshe here, so he is behind quite a lot, and what he needs to realize is that he needs to draw the last Dorito tile over here. Well, Ice gets the Dorito tile anyway, so these are fantastic draws for the German. As I said, most of the time, either both of these players are going to be completing these cities, or neither of them will, but in this case, we get not what we normally expect. So it has to hurt a lot not getting the 75%, but it is what it is. And look at this, yeah, Ice is invading. He's hoping to get either the Road Monastery for the square, or maybe a sequence of back-to-back curve or something like this. You can also get a Road Monastery over here to try and invade that unclaimed 6-point field, simply expanding his field at the bottom. Oh, but the reason why this was an imprecision is because Red had to realize at that point that the only way for him to win the game is to actually get that tile, the Dorito tile. And so a move that I would have preferred was going over here trying to set up a 5-point road that he could complete upon the completion of the city. On the other hand, it also makes sense to not claim that road, but claim the 6-point field instead. So maybe that wasn't such a big imprecision after all. Ice is getting himself more points, more monasteries. Will Pakshe with the first monastery draw in his game. Yellow claims farmers. Actually, no, am I discounting red a bit too early? Red does have a lot of field points. Red has 21 field points, really. And he could still get a curve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's still 3 curves to go here to get himself a 24th point. But not anymore as... Well, what's his yellow going to do? Is he going to just go here? Yeah, it's a 3-point move. It does appear to be really strong. Red is going to go over here. Finally, something they should have done a while ago. Hi, Polo Verde. It is indeed the highest scoring move for him, but Ice gets himself even more points. 7 points for this farmer, 4 points for the city, 3 for the field. Some quick points opportunity for Red. He should absolutely take them. And you know what? I think actually Red has a chance. So what Red needs to do here, he needs to draw the last curve and unify his fields, and then try to get the road monasteries to expand his field further, to bring these cities into his field, and then to bully this guy with a 2 versus 1 majority. It looks like he's going to come close then, but then still, the monasteries. Well, we can forget about the monasteries. Let's pretend that this is interesting. I mean, it is interesting, but I think that even with the best possible tile, it's not quite enough for Red. I could be wrong. But the main thing that Red needs to do first is just score. Like, no, like, really? Is that enough? Is that truly enough? So he's kind of doing the opposite thing. He's now trying to block his opponent's field farmer from entry. But can you really afford to do this at that score? Your opponent is like 20 points ahead on the scoreboard. Well, I guess the idea of this move, he was also hoping to get this city cap and get 7 points for his field as well. But 7 points ain't gonna cut it. The cities at the bottom are unified. A completely unreasonable monastery setup for Ice here. Yeah, and that's the stuff that I was talking about. Like, Red could have gone over here. And then Red could have gone over here. So Red even drew the tiles that were necessary for him. Now the best that Red can do is, I don't even know, going over here, but that's not good because that would unify his 2 farmers. And then he would lose 3 points because currently Red is scoring for this city twice. From this farmer and from this farmer. Yeah, I would be really curious to calculate after this. Was there even a win path for Pakshe? And there might have been. Hi, Sergey. Yeah, just 3 quick points for Red. Minus 17 on the scoreboard just to rub it in. Ice is going to get even more points. Three-point road for Pakshe, the last dagger for Ice. Yeah, and this is very difficult in terms of the draws because the Thai player didn't even get a city cap to expand his field. Well, let's have a look at how big the point difference is. Overall, I would say it's still like a very, very high level match. So whenever one side draws a lot of monasteries, they're really supposed to win. It's just very difficult to play against. I kind of felt that maybe red could have risked harder at some point. So let's see, 21 points, which is not even such a huge difference. Let me think about this. So with 7 extra points, maybe he could have, no, that still wasn't enough. So let's see, so with the idea that I mentioned, so with the road monastery, he scores a 5-point road instead of a 3-point road. That's +2. And he also gets 18 extra, because he gets these 3 cities. Well, actually, he gets even more, because with my suggestion, he would have scored over here with some points. The one thing that I'm not sure about is if there were even curves available at that point to bring the second farmer in. But I think there still were. Or even without curves, you know, there's actually an even better plan. So from Red's perspective, we go over here. We score points. Our opponent gets city points. But then by getting the city points, they create an attacking platform against the field. Then we get the road monastery, we score the 5 points for the road, we unify the 2 farmers temporarily, and then on our last tile, we manage to go over here and like connect with the monastery, something like this. Yeah, so I think there were indeed some winning chances missed by the Thai player. Of course, still very far-fetched. And he would not have gotten the tiles that he needs. But still, just to point out that very often in Carcassonne, all is not lost until the very, very end. So, game 3 has started. The score is tied, which I'm going to reflect on the scoreboard in a second. The Thai player now started the game with the city over here. Some road moves in response. Yellow is trying to pressure the square a little bit. There's a very clear response here from Red, which is exactly this. Yellow starts a new city whilst also obstructing this square. But Red has a chance to connect his roads. Slight imprecision though. It was a bit better to turn the other way, but it's a bit too long to explain. And it will end up not mattering. Yellow with a very early farmer and a 6-point city and a lead on the scoreboard. And it's a great tile for Red. Not only is he going to get extra points, because he's going to get 4 points for each road instead of a 6-point for the loop, but he's also going to restrict the farm a little bit, but he's not he's not concerned too much about the farm restriction, as he intends to simply fight for it. But I think from Red's perspective, actually I would have preferred to wait for the field fight. The reason for this, well, now it doesn't matter, because he gets his city anyway, and he's going to have an advantage with all the scoreboard stuff. But the idea is, since this city was a little bit vulnerable, in some scenarios, this city actually gets blocked. But if the city gets blocked and we lose our meeple, then this also limits the potential of this field. And so by just delaying the farmer a little bit further, we could give ourselves the chance to not lose the game or not to have a big disadvantage in case our city gets blocked. Because of these roads over here, the farm has yet to prove its validity. Well, now, of course, once the city is completed, then the farm is way, way more than valid, but the completion of the city was not guaranteed. So, of course, a very subtle moment. It ends up having no bearing on the game. Red still has a slight advantage due to their scoreboard lead, but Yellow with the farming advantage. And actually, if Yellow gets something as simple as a straight road, they go over here and they connect to the field, and they also eliminate this platform. And then they keep a majority on a field with a lot of potential and not easy platforms for Red to access. So from Red's perspective, I wonder if you can go over here and actually try and play against this farmer. You know what? I think that would be awesome. Because the idea is, there's already one dagger that's used, so we could block the square in the future. Maybe if we get a horse, we could go over here and we could just block everything and keep this guy stranded at 3 points. And this is exactly what he does. Now, of course, a straight line for ice. It will help him to connect to the field like this, but it was still worth trying. And not that there were really many better moves available in any case. And also what this move does, it just makes the field a little bit smaller, because currently the field is 9 points. And maybe if Pakshe successfully restrict this road, which by the way they should, let's see if they find this move. So by far the best move for Red now is to go over here and start a city facing Yellow's road. And Red has found many difficult moves today. I presume they're going to find that. And there's some other options available, but anything else you're going to do in this position is inferior. The reason why I really want to go over here, well, first of all, it gives you a very nice way of building up your city in a controlled manner, where you never really risk your meeple. And then you kind of try and build a flower like this, and then you try to close this field and hope that your opponent gets only 9 points. And look at this, he finds it. He finds easily his best move. Of course, Ice gets a fantastic tile to get himself a rolled meeple back, but that's okay. It's still a decent city worth doing. He can either go for a lip-shaped pattern, or he could go for a shorter pattern like this. Although if we do this, we just open up the position so much. Like this monastery spot, bam, 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 just everything gets very easily opened up, and Yellow has the upper hand in this open position because they already have dropped the second farmer. Overall, still an advantage for Pakshe because of his monastery on the left, and there's still a curve, and like there's still a chance to use monastery stacking. So from Red's perspective, we don't even have to tie the field just yet, but I think a move that he's contemplating is actually going over here and dropping a farmer, which is not something that I would do, but it's reasonable. So the idea is that this square is really hard to block. Yeah, let's look at this in detail. Okay, so we go here, we drop a farmer. This square is difficult to block. Now, if somebody gets a monastery, then obviously this guy connects to the field. If this square is blocked, though, then these farmers stay stranded at 9 points, which is not horrible, but you know, it's still good for Red this early in the game. And then as for the 0-point farmer, due to this city cap, due to this moment, and due to this green square, hypothetically, Red can just develop a counter field on the right. Red makes not a really good move. It just isn't a good move. Like, so he starts a new city, which really doesn't accomplish that much, and he sacrifices the integrity of his monastery. A portion of the time, he even gets both of his meeples blocked there. If he's not going to go for this idea, which, as I speak about it, I actually start liking more and more and more, then he can just go here and start a new city like this. Oh, well, that's an interesting tile. So yzemaze is now trying to block his own field, but he's taking this guy's collateral damage. So the idea of this move, he wants to get a Dorito tile and go over here and trap this meeple, while also still having some outside chances of drawing daggers and developing his field like this. Red gets a fantastic tile, but not an easy place to use it. So imagine if this tile was just not here, like Red's position would have been so much better. He could have gone over here, scored 5 points for the monastery, and then try to build up. But now it's not really possible, because if he goes over here, well, he's sacrificing the integrity of either this or this square, and this guy just gets blocked more often. So the move that he probably wants to go for is going over here, which is a lot of points. But with a single straight line, he could get this square restricted to just a dagger. There's one of those already drawn. Not going to happen as he dodges a bullet here, so that's a great, great development for the Thai player. Yellow with his own monastery, controlling the city cap, controlling all of these squares, all lovely stuff. He actually might be considering going over here. Or maybe going over here, just trying to break something. I feel like, don't you ever draw a tile and you feel like, I want to break something, I want to break something. Like you get one of those quadruple city tiles, you get like a road. Where do I stick it? Where do I stick it? And he does indeed break Red City. Not completed, but it makes it significantly harder to complete. So the city on the right is either going to be blocked, or at the very least, Yellow is going to have a time to create an invasion platform before the city constitute a significant threat. Scoring tile for the play with the red meeples, and this should be very interesting. So there is one move which I like. It's a bit counterintuitive. It's not going here, and it's not going here for a variety of reasons. But my favorite move is actually to go here and to turn the crossroads like this. Two reasons. Yeah, he finds it. Realistic, very nice board vision by red. So several reasons. First of all, we restrict the city cap, so it's now harder for yellow to score quick points. Second, we restrict the field. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, we do sacrifice the safety of that square a little bit, but not really. If anything, we're preparing a better monastery spot if we get one of the 3 remaining monasteries. Yellow gets quick points on the left. Red gets quick points on the right. It was also possible for red to go over here and start this new city, but 4 points are 4 points are 4 points. Well, yellow now probably going to go over here and restrict the monastery. No, he does not. Are we going to see another farmer? No, we do not. And look at this, because yellow did not restrict this square, red now gets a fantastic tile. This monastery is huge. It scores 6 immediate points. It supports the city. It even gives him a platform to attack the field. And now red suddenly has a fantastic position. So these things can change very, very quickly. And I think it's a bit of a misprioritization from the German. And I'm not only saying it because red drew what he did. I was talking about this monastery spot way before, well, like 15 seconds before red actually drew the tile. And we see that yellow is now successfully blocking this square. But blocking the square really does not accomplish that much. I mean, it does. Like, if this meeple gets trapped and this meeple also gets trapped, then yellow's going to have 8 points over here and red's going to have only 1, so that's a winning mini battle. But going over here simply prevents our opponents from getting a city cap. Well, not, by the way, it doesn't even prevent that. It just makes it slightly harder. So with a city cap, red can score 3 points by completing his city. And it's really not such a big deal, because by going over here, red scored 6. 5 for the new monastery plus 1 for the previous one. And spatially, this monastery just accomplishes so much. So much. Now that I think about it, though, maybe one of the reasons why Ice was reluctant to go over here, that was restricting his field, of course. He didn't want to do this. And he also didn't want his opponents to go over here with a curve and start a new road. And also, technically, I guess red still had an option for a monastery spot over here. But the monastery spot at the top is just not as powerful as this one. This is just everything. Oh, look at this. The Germans now trying to fight for this city. Well, Pakshe gets a dagger anyway, probably looking to go... Where exactly, actually? Do you go over here and get a meeple back? Do you drop a farmer along the way? Or do you be extremely aggressive and start a new city like this? Or do you maybe protect your monastery a little bit by going over here? Lots of tough choices. My favorite move is probably going over here and, yes, dropping a farmer. 6 points is not a lot, but it's worth enough to be a counter field. We also know that we're about to get another meeple back here, another meeple back here. This city attack, by the way, from Yellow's perspective, it makes it harder, or in fact, close to impossible for Pakshe to try and fight for the field, or at least to fight for the field efficiently. Because this field connection platform is no longer there. Now, there's this field connection platform, but with this move, it could be easily eliminated. I doubt that the field is big enough for it to be a priority. Probably as red, what I really want to do, as yellow, what I really want to do first is not that, but instead something like that. Just trying to add myself a monastery points before my opponent finishes our monastery. Before he finishes his monastery and puts pressure on this square over here. Because you know what? There are some scenarios which are not extremely rare where red gets his monastery meeple back, finishes this hypothetical 8-point city, and blocks this square like this, and leaves 2 of yellow's meeples stranded. I mean, red is really playing with fire here. Yellow is playing with fire. Because as yellow, I would have really preferred a move like this, which would have given himself the monastery point, and also made the field of red just so much smaller. Instead, yellow is spending tiles and just chasing around red city, whereas from yellow's perspective, we should just accept that the city is going to get completed. Like, whenever your opponent gets a tile like this, like, you're not stopping your opponent's city. Who are you kidding? Well, I mean, he's stopping it now. Now, of course, he's going to go over here because the city on the right is way too big. I don't get this. I don't get this. I mean, I do get this. It's a very nice block, of course, that the monastery is now almost blocked. But then, if you think about it, blocking the monastery is not such a big deal because it also blocks the field. The field's worth 9, monastery is worth 8. Well, it's going to be worth 8, so it's pretty much the same thing. It makes sense, though, because this farm still has ways of developing at the top, and the meeple counts are, in fact, important. But from yellow's perspective, since the city on the right is becoming so dangerous, I would have really preferred a move like this. Especially if yellow's going to devote so many resources to try and block that square, when if you get a good tile to follow up, you better follow up. Pakshe with a scoring tile. He gets himself a city cap, which could be used in a variety of places. Maybe here? Yep, exactly. So he's trying to prepare a vanilla city cap or a Dorito or something like this that goes over here, completes him a monastery, and then gives him a chance to finish a 10-point city like this. Now a dilemma with the curve for the German. Now, this move seems to be long overdue, but at this point, I doubt if it is the best. Yeah, exactly, because this is super sensitive, but Pakshe gets himself the city cap, and yeah, really a series of unfortunate events for the German, and I felt like some preventable issues here. We also see now how Pakshe is going to get a fantastic tile for himself, of course. Ice with the last dagger. So this means that this monastery is trapped. He's now trying to get himself a 10-point city, which would put him back in the game, but now the Thai player has a fantastic tile which goes over here and is going to accomplish the exact thing that I told you all about. It's going to complete him the monastery, and it's going to put severe pressure on this square. It's a bit of a difficult decision whether or not you meeple the monastery or not, but whether you meeple the new city, but going over here is just extremely annoying for your opponent. Again, something that could have been prevented. And he chooses to not even meeple the city, which is a bit dangerous. But this means that he's quite confident in his ability to block this square. Hi, Bexy. Yellow in an incredibly difficult position. Probably needs to just score as much as he can. I mean, going over here for 4 points looks a bit uninspiring, but that's certainly an option. Going over here is also another option, trying to make it slightly harder for his opponent to block his city. Going over here is also an option. Not really many productive moves available. Yeah, he starts a 4-point road, which is about the best that you can do. Pakshe is now gonna go over here and try to block this square. This is what I expect. Ooh, this is also pretty interesting. So he chooses to invade the field and also make it harder for Ice to finish his city. Yeah, so Ice has a lot of stuff in his position committed to city plus road tiles. But the triple city road tile is going to give him some relief as he successfully completed his monastery, which is also, by the way, from Pakshe's perspective, we should have thought about meepling this city, by the way. I think getting a bit stingy with meeples, but that's okay. And now Yellow's suddenly doing just fine. He still can even threaten the development and future completion of that city. So at the very least, Pakshe is going to either need to spend some tiles on blocking or a meeple on going over here and equalizing that city. This connection is still not yet guaranteed. There are some scenarios how Yellow successfully gets a curve here, maybe a city tile over here, blocks this square. Now Red is really burning a lot of his time trying to decide whether it's worth meepling a monastery, and yes it is. And I'm going to say it's quite easily worth meepling a monastery. It's quite difficult for it to get blocked, unless... So there's one thing that he's worried about. So obviously the move I think is still to go here. But there's one tile which makes things difficult for us. And the tile is the last remaining cow. Because if a cow goes over here, then it blocks this square, and it also blocks this square, which in turn indirectly protects this square, and so on and so on. So Red is building up his monastery. Also note that Red was not trying to block this square, because I think what really Red wants to do is try and use the fact that they're all three horse tiles already on the board. And so Red is looking to draw something like a Dorito with a road here and block the square permanently. Or something like a starting tile maybe, also blocking this permanently. So from Ice's perspective, one move which is counterintuitive, but which I really like, is actually going over here. And that would be, first of all, restricting Red's monastery, taking advantage of the fact that there's only one monastery remaining for him to complete it, and this would take away some tiles from Red. And then also, this would be saving the city, still leaving 2 starting tiles for him to complete. And also from Red's perspective, it's quite difficult to block the city completely. And he finds the move. Excellent, excellent play here from the German. So now some realistic paths for him to win the game. Completing the city. Denying this farmer, which is a bit harder to do. And simply winning the coin flip for the monastery that goes into this square. Of course, there's still some vanilla city caps that go there, but they're not as high impact as finishing the monastery with another monastery. Red with the quadruple city tile and no real good move. So as Red, you have to like your position. You're 23 points ahead on the scoreboard. You have 2 monasteries. Yes, your opponent has some city projects, but overall, all you're trying to do is avoid the worst case scenario. So I think from Red's perspective, what you gotta do is try to calculate how likely it is that Yellow could complete his city. And the answer is not at all unlikely. And that's why he chooses to sacrifice 2 points for the sake of making it harder, and in fact next to impossible, for Yellow to complete that city. So then the question from Yellow's perspective, do we just try and force our way and complete the city nevertheless? I mean, going over here with a city cap, maybe it's not the worst idea, because our opponent has only one meeple. It's difficult for them to invade the city properly. In case they do invade, there's still a splitter available. Yeah, I kind of feel that they could have been a bit more aggressive there. I think I liked going here. There is still just enough Dorito to make that city happen. Instead, yellow's trying to score a city on the right. But I think at this point of the game, that just doesn't cut it. Like, we need bigger threats. Red is now trying to block yellow city. Yellow defends, but red gets himself one of the starting tiles. And in addition, he gets himself 6 points. This is looking very, very good for Pakshe. City cap for ice. He's going to get 4 points and the second starting tile for red. Okay, now this is really over. I don't think there's really all that much that we can do here from red's perspective. From yellow's perspective, rather. This was so enthralling that I just realized that I had barely had a sip of my no longer hot liquid. Oh, I also forgot that red actually had a field at the bottom. Yeah, so red is developing his field. And you know what? The more I think about this, the more I see the outcome, the more I really don't like these two city caps. Because now, at least with these two city caps over here, presuming that all the other moves would have been the same, which I think they would have, then we would have still a real chance of winning this game. Like, just a Dorito goes over here, and then that's still it. Like, it's super hard to block. Try to imagine this. I mean, red, of course, gets himself the monastery, just draws the world. Ice is trying to get himself an 8-point city, but I have a suspicion that he's not going to complete it. This city cap is quite painful to see in the Thai player's hands if you're the German fan. Also quite unfortunate that he waited for a curve for such a long time. Well, yellow is building up on the left. Even if there were tiles in the deck that would help him complete this, there's just simply not enough moves to complete the city. Well, finally a meeple back for the German, but it is a bit too late. He can't even use it anymore. Another city cap for Pakshe. And you know what? Now that I look at this, I really think, I really wonder what would happen with these city caps over here. So chances are that Pakshe would block the city, but it's not possible. First of all, it is quite easy for the Thai player to have made a mistake, because there were other threats on the board, such as this city that they dealt with. Yeah, I really wonder what would have happened had the German created this threat of the city over here. In any case, a very difficult game from the get-go, and extremely well played by red, actually. So, of course, some fantastic draws towards the end, but even without those draws, I mean, even if we take away half of this 40-point difference, I felt that red had control of this. So some notable situations with the monastery over here, with a little counter field over here. Very nice and a bit of a counterintuitive point sacrifice against this city, invading the farm. Another 3-minute break has been requested. So last chance for the German to hang in this match. Pakshe 2, yzemaze 1. They must be extra motivated now, because if yzemaze loses, he's going to have his second 4th place finish in a couple of months. He also came 4th in the Mind Sports Olympiad in late January, which still is a great achievement, and also to get 2 top 4 finishes in major international tournaments, that is really a big feat. But psychologically, there is a difference between 4th and 3rd. Or at least we're culturally conditioned to believe so. He's going to have the starting player advantage. The game has been created already. Oh, and then it has started. Yeah, just some interface issues. So, possibly the last game of the bronze medal match. Hopefully not the last if you're a German fan. Ice. Start with a 4-point city. Looks like a good start. Pakshe with a mistake early on. So this road pattern, I mean, the other road was better, wasn't it? It was much better. Well, it's a mistake that could be inconsequential, but typically this sort of road pattern... Anyway, so two tile road patterns. This is better than this is better than this. Very simple rule. So curve, curve, beats straight line, beats curve, straight line in the opening. A bit too long to explain, but maybe red is hoping to accomplish some sort of 6-point loop later. We're gonna find out. In any case, city tile for red, and now let's see what their style is, because there are 2 possibilities. Actually, there's really only one possibility, so I was going to say either you start a new city yourself or you block your opponent, but there's really not a good place to start a new city. So the best he can do is probably going over here, start breaking yellow city a little bit, or maybe going over here with the same purpose. Here also makes sense, trying to create multiple sensitive squares. This, I think, was a little bit stronger simply because there's an actual chance to break the city fully a little bit sooner. The roads ends up being equalized. Yellow is looking to see what red is going to do with the city cap tile. Another stylistic issue. So do we just start a new city? This is probably the move with the meeple on the city cap, or do we drop a farmer instead? It's not unreasonable to see an early farmer like this. A city would be stronger, it seems to me, for a variety of reasons. And this is what the Thai player does. His city is getting broken by his opponent's quadruple city tile, but a 4-pointer nonetheless. Plus, also trying to obstruct this guy a little bit. Oh, this is interesting. So yellow drops a 6-point farmer, which is going to have still a lot of potential. For example, a road monastery could go over here, or some curves could go over here, and so on and so on. And this guy here has already some problems completing that city. But from red's perspective, maybe now this gives us some sort of a game plan. What I would be really looking forward to drawing is a crossroads, a simple crossroad that goes over here for 3 points and a severe restriction of this farmer. And then after that, we do something like this, and then from red's perspective, we control this square. So what we could do, we could never fill that square, or even block that square potentially. We could build ourselves a big ruin that outscores this 6-point farmer. So this would be my plan for red. Still, a lot of conditions need to be met before that happens. And I wonder if red is actually going to go over here and invade Yellow City. Now, normally it's not a good idea because Yellow City is pretty broken. Well, it's not broken, but it's vulnerable, so you don't want to invade your opponent's vulnerable cities. You only want to invade your opponent's cities when they're a threat. The city at the bottom is not a threat yet. But if you go over here, it takes away so many tiles from our opponents. In particular, it takes away these 2 monastery squares. So I think I would have been tempted to do that. Red makes a more normal move. Start a new city at the top. Which gives Yellow a lot of chances to try and play against that city. But I don't like this move by Yellow. I would have preferred the straight line over here. I would have preferred to keep options open for this square. Try to pressure this square instead. Because the reason is we really want to prevent our opponent from drawing a splitter. Because as soon as they draw a splitter, which is still possible, then they consolidate. And they can get one of the 2 remaining barbed wire tiles and score 10 points for the city. From Yellow's perspective, we really should be hoping that our opponent never gets this meeple back. And if you're thinking that your opponent's not going to get a meeple back, you actually want to leave more options for this square. You want to be able to fill it with field Doritos, with row Doritos, for example, just so that you take advantage of all the green squares over here for the future. Try to develop your farm into something meaningful to make red really suffer for his meeple disadvantage. That said, for it to become a true meeple disadvantage, this city would need to be completed, which is still a big if. Pakshe with an interesting tile, a road monastery, which is fantastic. So, of course, normally you want to go... Nah, really? That's interesting. It's not necessarily wrong, but I think I would have just preferred the more normal move over here. Now, of course, the reason why red doesn't want to go over here is because he does not want to expand his opponent's field. But that monastery, either here or here for that matter, is so good that at this point, red simply should have decided to shift his strategy and just be okay with yellow's field growing. Because yellow, first of all, yellow could still draw out the other road monastery and go over here. Or yellow could still grow his field by just getting a simple curve like this. And then with just one curve, yellow has a lot of green squares and so on. So I think it's a bit of a miss. Actually, a big miss, rather. But it just shows you how these early farmers can mess with your opponent psychologically. So red went to such length as to not want to expand yellow's field that he sacrificed really a lot of equity there. So first of all, 2 points, plus he's now committed pretty much all his game on his tile. If both crossroad tiles or city crossroad tiles are drawn by yellow, then this square is going to be empty. And then both the city and red's monastery are going to get blocked. Then if yellow gets something like a curve over here, then a curve over here is going to have a lot of green squares, develop his field with a huge meeple majority, and there's nothing that red will be able to do. And at the moment, it just seems that it's still the case, right? So red is behind on meeples and the scoreboard. Well, we can fix the former by going over here for 3 points, but do we want to do that? Or maybe we want to be more aggressive and go over here. Complete the connection at the bottom, and then even try to draw Dorito city cap and run away with the big city at the bottom. So that would be a spectacular way to win this match. I can't speak to the probabilities of that actually happening, so it's something that Pakshe could be estimating at the moment. There's also this move available like that, but I don't like it because this square is kind of vulnerable. We want to take care of that first. Let's see what the Thai player does here. He could also go here, theoretically, just to mess with this road meeple a little bit more. So he goes for the city, which is really interesting. I rather like it. And it's really threatening. So Ice has an invasion platform over here. But Red has an invasion platform over here as well. Green chooses to place a monastery in a way that equalizes Red's monastery. That is probably the best that they can do in this position. Now Red with a fantastic monastery tile, but they have only one meeple, so they really can't afford to be spending it on monasteries, or so I think. They could go over here, but it seems kind of reckless to me. I would prefer my move maybe like this, scoring 2 points. You can't really score 3 points in this position, because if you go here, then you expand Yellow's field, and you also make what's your city, what's potentially your city, more vulnerable. And for the same reason, you can't score 3 points over here, because you're making your own city more vulnerable. So a point sacrifice. And now the German is trying to block a little bit more, which is actually a very nice move. Just playing against the meeple minority of Pakshe, but this city at the bottom is still up for grabs. So I wonder if Yellow was considering to just complete the invasion first. He decides that he can do this a little bit later. Or you know what? Another possible move was going over here. Simply saying no to this other red meeple who's trying to invade at the bottom. Red pretty much discarded the tile, and now Yellow gets himself a starting tile. He invades the city at the bottom before Red has the chance to do so. Red now, of course, will re-invade, which is his only chance to not lose the game at the on the spot, unless Red goes over here and does so immediately. Yeah, exactly. Had he not done that, Yellow would have gone over here and put himself in a position one Dorito away from winning the game on the spot. Still, either party can draw a splitter tile, and in both cases it would have a great effect. If Red gets a splitter tile, Red can go over here, over here, over here, complete a gigantic city all by himself. Yellow can get a Dorito tile and a splitter over here, completing a less gigantic but still an impactful city, also all by himself. Ice now getting a little bit closer in meeples to his opponent, and look at this. Pakshe with the splitter, but where exactly do you use it? So it's very, very interesting. He does go for it. He gives Ice a meeple back for the chance to finish a big city over here. I really like this idea. This is the content move. He could have gone over here as well, trying to finish his own city, but he says, know what? We're gonna go for it. Ice now gets the chance to develop his field, which I think he should take. I know it could be, well, he could also go over here at the bottom. Not here, not here, not here. Okay, this ends up being fine. He's, of course, trying to create a platform for himself to re-invade the city. But from Red's perspective, from Yellow's perspective, I might have preferred this move first, so that we can invade that square. But it's very subtle, it's very difficult. So the reason why I'm a bit wary about a move like this is because if Red gets a Dorito immediately, then suddenly this move doesn't accomplish much. But then Red didn't get a Dorito immediately. Yeah, you know what? This actually makes a lot of sense. I actually really, really like that. So with this move, Yellow is saying that he's going to draw any city plus field tile because, you know, a city cap goes here, a Dorito goes here, an extender goes here, of which there's still one remaining. And he's saying that he's going to do that before Pakshe gets a Dorito tile. It does make a lot of sense. Red is trying to block Yellow's meeples on the left unsuccessfully as a dagger is immediately drawn. A Dorito by Pakshe is now going to make it really, really, really Difficult for the German. Also note how with the straight line, he's not trying to block, he's trying to invade the city. He's giving himself an extra platform. But Pakshe now with a fantastic tile, all he can do, he can just ignore this. He can just allow his opponent to try and invade if he so chooses. But now a powerful curve move would be this. Severely limiting the potential of this farmer. In fact, that would be the only move which makes any sense. And I have no doubt that he's going to find it. Yeah, very nice find. Nice. Start a new monastery as compensation. I am quite literally on the edge of my seat right now. Who's going to draw a city cap first? Is that red to finish a gigantic city, or is that yellow to try and invade and avert a disaster? Yellow is going to have a better position if he does succeed. He is trying to invade. There's still a splitter available, so red, of course, is going to go over here and still leave himself a chance of drawing said splitter. This is exactly what happens, and just in time as yellow was going to connect to the city. Now it's no longer possible. And there's just really no good moves for yellow in this position. He could go over here, but I doubt that that's a very good move. Yeah, the trouble here for yellow is that even if you draw one of the two remaining Doritos, yellow just scores quick points in the only place available on the board. But anyway, my point is, even if you draw the Dorito, that it will still give Pakshe a chance to re-invade that city. So this is looking pretty dangerous. Now, if this move was the only move that scored 2 points, it comes with 2 positional concessions. It allows Pakshe to develop his city like this, eating up the shielded tile. It also protects this square a little bit, and we know that red could still draw a splitter here, and a tile that goes here, and complete his 10-pointer. And so this tile makes it just a bit more likely to happen. Red. With the city cap, he has a strong move available, or a reasonable move available. Let's see if he finds it. Actually, I have no doubt that he's gonna. Red has been pretty consistent with his tactics, and he has really found a lot of unorthodox moves in situations where I think they were the only correct move. Especially in game 3, where he took that early Dorito and faced it against yellow's road. Napama is saying, where are all the city pieces? Exactly. So the move that I see here from red is simply going over here, slightly obstructing that square and facing the city cap to the top. The idea is that if yellow gets himself a city cap, then they will get 4 points, but they will also expose a blocking platform against their monastery. We get to go over here and block that square completely pretty easily because both road monasteries have gone out, so this allows us more blocking options. Also, actually, wait a second. There's only one straight line remaining. Hi, isn't that interesting? So if we go over here, that's already immediately a 50-50 restriction. So actually, this monastery meeple is extremely unlikely to be completed. So it's something that red has to see. I'm very worried about his time management here. He does indeed find the best move, but it took him a sweet time. Nerves, nervousness, a lot of things could explain this. Pakshe with an interesting decision, or maybe not so interesting. I mean, he wants to continue his city, obviously. And he also helps both reds and yellow's monasteries in the process. Yellow now gets a road Dorito and another interesting decision. Yellow has only one meeple. He chooses to spend it on an invasion, which makes sense, because he's looking to get a meeple back soon. Does he get it? Yes, he does. And what a huge sigh of relief for yzemaze. He finishes his top monastery, gets himself even more points on the scoreboard, and he loses this monastery, but this was bound to happen. There's nothing that fits into this square. Red catches up on the scoreboard a little bit, but yellow also gets some points, and he also draws one of the tiles that were suitable for Pakshe here. And you know what Pakshe can do now? Instead of taking 3 points over here, well, he can take 3 points over here, but I wonder if it was even better to take 2 points over here and try and set up a very long road that goes through this square, because there's still one tile that fits there. So from Isa's perspective, it's still not the easiest position to deal with. Now, we know at the very least that our opponent will not be completing that city. And we're far enough on the scoreboard that if we get the Dorito, we might even consider not placing it over there, simply to avoid the risk of our opponent's re-invasion from the bottom. But how exactly do you continue this game? It's really not obvious. A move that I see is simply going over here, taking 1 point, and just disrupting this road a little bit. The purpose is as follows. We know that red still has a butterfly tile available to them. And if red's going to go over here, they could just take advantage of this long road in addition. Ooh, isn't that interesting? So they instead go for a gigantic coin flip. Their idea is to try and set up a butterfly tile score over here, either with a farmer or with a simple 4-pointer, knowing that if red gets the butterfly, red's going to use the butterfly over here. But it's a very, very volatile situation. Now, really it seems to me that whoever draws the butterfly tiles wins the game, because if red gets the butterfly, he gets a meeple back, and he gets, like, what, 7 points for the road? That's just ridiculous. But then Isa's still ahead on the scoreboard. Well, we know for sure that if yellow gets the butterfly tile, then yellow is winning this game. Whoops. Oh, man. My apologies to the players. I was trying to change the screen and accidentally typed something in the chat. You know what? The Board Game Arena should implement an options like not allowing viewers to chat. That would help a lot in international tournaments. Both to avoid moments like these and just in general if like some spectators choose to be unreasonable. Wow, a Dorito has been drawn, which is huge news for our German fans, because red will not be getting all these points all to himself. There's still a chance that somebody could go over here and choose to snatch this big city all for themselves, because there's still a Dorito tile available. Red gets 2 points for the crossroads. Ice gets himself a city cap tile, and now again a decision. Do we just go over here? Do we finish the shared city? And we might even consider dropping a farmer, actually, because there is still a straight line that goes there. So a farmer here could be connected to all the fields over there. But if you do finish the shared city, then you leave your opponent's tempo. You're going to give them more meeples, and with whichever tile they have next, unless it's this tile, they're going to go over here and drop a farmer. And generally, when you're in the lead, you really don't want to be giving your opponent some meeple back. But if you don't finish your city, there are two risks. First of all, red can still get the last remaining city cap, which I think is still there. Go over there and try to risk it hard for the last Dorito and still win the city. This is a threat that yellow might choose to eliminate. And also if red gets the butterfly tile, and red goes over here, he's going to get himself a meeple back, and red's going to have the meeple majority, and yellow cannot get a meeple back from anywhere. Yellow decides that giving his opponent's meeple back is not really a good idea. Now, from Pakshe's perspective, you gotta wonder, when is it time to farm? Because you could go over here. This field would be worth 12 points. And then maybe you're gonna hope to go over here at some point. The last Dorito tile has been drawn, so the threat of somebody snatching the city is officially eliminated. Yellow's building up his city piece at the top. Red can equalize said city by going over here, which they probably should do. Yeah, there isn't really a better move than this. A dagger tile for ice. Again, he chooses not to complete any shared cities. He simply drops a 9-point farmer. Farmers don't really get better than this, do they? Pakshe desperately hoping for the butterfly tile. And they need it now. And also, they can't use their farmer right now. Ideally, you want to do something like this and try and equalize. But you really need those extra 8 points for the road. Or 7 points for the road. So you need to keep a meeple in hand to claim them. Red is probably trying to calculate points. Well, it's actually not that difficult to do. So other than fields, the only feature on the board which is unshared is this 4-point city over here. So Pakshe is 8 points behind before the field. It's just incredibly, incredibly difficult. So he creates a loop road. Ice continues his field. Pakshe scores a little bit. And there we go. The city tile has been drawn by the German. Even if red were to go over here, now was just simply too late because red cannot accomplish anything meaningful with his last two meeples. Red gets himself an extra farmer, an extra point, an extra city in his farm, and red can only score a little bit. So yzemaze is going to prevail over here with quite a big difference. Also, to rub it in, he draws the last triple city tile that was suitable over here for the city expansion. Pakshe misses his 6-point field. He could have gone over here for a farmer like this. Although it ends up making no difference really, because had Pakshe done something else, had he gone for the 6-point field, then Ice would have taken these 3 points with this little city cap. Yeah, very instructive game, of course, very, very back and forth. An immensely interesting decision for red to try and YOLO it for the big city, and it was somewhat justified, I believe. Yellow, at the very last moment, managed to reconnect, and as a result, hold to his lead. And I think everything that happens in this game really comes back to this decision over here. So yellow got this early farmer, and I felt like red just got caught up a little bit too hard playing against said farmer. He sacrificed the integrity of his monastery so hard, he placed the monastery over here, which ended up being stranded, instead of taking a much safer monastery at the bottom. And then as a result, he was in a meeple minority the entire game, which the German took advantage of. So you couldn't wish for better script. Pakshe 2, yzemaze 2, and now the final 5th game. Who's going to decide the bronze medalist? This time, the Thai player is not asking for a 3-minute break even. But it shows that they're offline. Hopefully that everything's okay with them. Well, they're back here. I don't see anything being said about any breaks. But I expect we're having one after all. I don't know about the duration of such break. I feel like it has been over 3 minutes at this point. So I just suggest that we wait in silence for as long as it takes. Well, there we go. The final game of the day, the final game of this match, the final game of the tournament for these two players. Pakshe with the red meeples and the starting player advantage. Meeples a 2-point road, but it is the German with the first scoreboard lead with 2 quick points. Pakshe with 2 city caps. He can only meeple one of them. No. Don't go to the chat. The reason I'm so concerned about the chat, because like I appreciate how distracting it could be for the players just seeing that thing appearing that somebody's typing. Because I know that when I play in tournaments and somebody's typing in the chat, I hate that. Anyway, I'm going to try and just click on things more carefully from now on. So, a 2 points ministry for yellow, which is in fact his best move. Very interesting position here. Lots of 1-point cities. Lots of symmetry as well. And look at this. There are 3 city caps, which have a road facing into them. Pakshe with a very interesting decision. He chooses to equalize Red's monastery, which I kind of like. Ice finishes his city and puts a bit of pressure on this road. 6 points for the German. Pakshe with a Dorito tile, probably looking to continue one of his cities. Well, maybe not that one. Maybe that one, or maybe even start a third one. That's actually not crazy. Yeah, as Red, really doing like this is not the worst idea at all. I probably would have preferred that even. Because now, really. Okay, that sure. If that works for you, I would have preferred a different move by the German here. I figured like this was the way to go. Instead, he's now trying to put pressure against the city cap. But then this city cap was really not the biggest threat in the world. So let's see what Red does here. Well, really only one move that isn't counterproductive. So obviously you can't continue this city. And I guess it's between taking 2 quick points here, which would be my preferred move because it would also put pressure against this city here, against this square which belongs to Yellow's monastery, or taking 2 points over here, which would put some pressure against this road, but it would also make Red's own road a little bit vulnerable. So from Red's perspective, this appears to be just a tad stronger, but it is worth spending, 30 seconds or so. So finally Red gets on the scoreboard with his 2 points. And a fantastic monastery for yzemaze. Of course, he's going to go over here for 5 points, control his opponent's city, and enjoy a good position. Dorito tile for Yellow. Starting a new city, putting some pressure on Red, but Red will be completing his city, will be dropping a farmer, and will be enjoying his scoreboard lead. Now the position is gradually opening up. It's not so blocky. Great straight line here for the German. He gets to restrict the city cap of Red next to his monastery. And that's a good thing to have accomplished because his monastery is vulnerable in the first place due to this here square. So he might as well try and bring Red's meeple down with him. Quite an easy tile for Pakshe. Well, actually not that easy. There were 2 choices, either going here or going over here. He tries to block his monastery, and interesting that Yellow doesn't bother saving his meeple. I think, from Yellow's perspective, I would have loved this move. I think also with this much time on the clock, yeah, Yellow should have really thought for longer here. Because it's kind of very difficult to make that assessment whether or not your meeple is worth saving. And I think in that particular instance, for a variety of reasons, which could be a bit too long to explain, I think it was really worth just delaying this move a little bit and going over here and still having a 75% chance of saving this monastery. Because, now that the square is blocked, there are still 3 daggers, which Red could use over here, get himself a meeple back, and enjoy a meeple majority for the rest of the game. Yeah, I mean, this move also makes sense. Because there's some reasons why Red might not be, why Yellow might not be too preoccupied about his meeple, but I kind of felt like this position was not fully assessed before this move was made. So I tend to play pretty fast, sometimes to his benefit, as it puts a lot of pressure on his opponent, as we witnessed earlier today in the previous games, but sometimes to his detriment in a bit of more complicated positions which need some deeper evaluation. Red with a curve. He can build up his monastery if he so chooses in one of the several possible ways. He can build up his road, although that's not the most pleasant move to make. For example, if you do continue your road, which actually I think we still have to go for, then you give your opponents a very good monastery spot. But knowing that there are only 2 monasteries remaining, I would have preferred to have done that. Also because there's a chance for us to build this 8-point loop road as well. In any case, complete a reasonable move to continue his monasteries. Now some quick points for both parties. Ice is trying to build a big city, going for the usual lip-shaped pattern. So from Red's perspective, I wonder if we start going here and trying to create attacking platforms, or if we just peacefully develop our monasteries like this. We could, of course, still go for this move. We could still go for this move and try to finish our monasteries with another monastery, but with only 2 remaining, it's really not that valuable anymore. Ice continues his road and even gets himself a second meeple. Pakshe is going to invade the city over here. It's getting too dangerous. Well, this meeple here actually does seem to be a little bit extra, but that's okay. So an invasion will happen. Now yellow will be looking forward to inflict some damage on his opponent. He simply eliminates the city cap, and he's also trying to threaten some ideas of completely blocking this square. That's actually quite nice. He will not be able to accomplish it just yet, but he's able to finish his road with 2 meeples and drop a farmer, and also gets himself one of the daggers that Red needed over here. Pakshe is behind on the scoreboard, but overall still completely playable position. All he needs to do is maybe just go over here. Try to still have the chance of saving his city. Also restrict his opponent's monastery a little bit. You could also go over here and clean off the city cap, although it's not a pleasant move to make with only 1 meeple in hand. He does, however, have several places to recover meeples, 2 daggers to go here, many straight lines to go here, some crossroads to go here. So maybe we do clean up the city cap after all. On the other hand, if we don't go here, then if our opponent blocks this square, which is kind of unpleasant. But you know what? Maybe leaving this alone is okay. Yeah, I think this move was actually better. Because if our opponent does block the square, then most of the time they also block their own monastery in the process. So, well, now there's also like another issue. We do get ourselves the connection, which I think we have to take, but our opponent is taking an 8-point city. Oh, I kind of forgot that Red meepled this, which makes sense, but you know, there's some scenarios where both of these meeples get trapped. There are not too many of those, but there's some. Well, actually, there's one. I think a very powerful move for Ice is just to go here. Try to protect his monastery square and put a lot of pressure here. Or he could go here, maybe try and block this guy. There's just a lot of nasty stuff that the German could do here. But the first order of business, I think, would be something like this. Just to severely limit the number of crossroads that fit into here. And also to not allow our opponents to take a Dorito plus Dorito pattern. Yeah, this position is getting really complicated. And he does find this move, which is also not an easy move to pull trigger on. Because you don't like adding points to your opponent's city. And you also don't like exposing your own city to some potential trouble. Let's see how Red reacts to this. It's not exactly obvious. So Red could just make a normal move like continuing his city. Or Red could maybe go over here, protect the square a tad, and then put some pressure on this city. I actually doubt how much this accomplishes, but you know what? If we go here, then there's some pattern how we can get Dorito, 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 extender, and we build a circular city like this. It is quite unlikely to happen, but it could be worth a try. If we go here, then if our opponent goes here, it's actually very good for us, because they will be blocking their own city. But if they get something like a Dorito, this could be annoying. They could go here, meeple this, maybe make a big ruin or even a completable city, bringing in this guy over here. But overall, all of these developments are better than this guy simply getting easy 8 points. So I probably do prefer a move like this here, but it's really, really not obvious. Kind of curious if anybody in the chat has anything interesting suggestions about this position. Regardless of your experience, I'm looking to hear what y'all have to say. Because at this point, whichever move you pick as red, it's gonna have downsides. He makes the more natural move. It makes a lot of sense. He continues the city. Ooh, now it's really interesting. So does yellow simply finish his 8-point city? Or does yellow go for extreme aggression and try to win the city at the bottom? There would be only 2 tiles to connect, and even some chances for red to block in the future, but if he were to be successful, the impact of that would be huge. He chooses that his position is good enough that he does not need to gamble. Pakshe now is very close to completing his city. So from Isa's perspective, this is incredibly interesting again. So if red successfully completes his city, red's going to have a really, really big advantage. Oh, but red's not going to do it. It's actually a very straightforward move here. This was the last remaining vanilla city cap. So to avert disaster, all that the German has to do is simply go over here and block the city together with his own monastery, and he does indeed find this move. He was maybe considering some alternatives. He was considering going over here. He was maybe thinking of blocking the city a little bit later, but the threat of this city is so big that you really just can't afford it getting completed, period. The city will gain some small thing for Pakshe. Because it scores more than the monastery by exactly 1 point. So yay, winning mini battle 9 versus 8. At a severe cost, but still. Yellow with 3 meeples versus 0 is trying to block this square. And a dilemma now for Pakshe. He doesn't have meeples. He needs meeples back as soon as possible, so he really wants to be continuing this road. But this city, very threatening, so he might want to also defend. But how exactly does he do it? Going here would actually make sense. Yeah, building a road through the city. I think it's still worth doing. And there's still enough curves to still be able to complete this road, perhaps. Because I really don't want to be giving back this equity too easily, and he does indeed go for this. This allows Eyes to just go over here and meeple this road, perhaps, in compensation. But instead he chooses to take 3 quick points, which I still like. This, by the way, also shows you the power of blocking. Because this move over here, even though it did not end up blocking a meeple, it forced red to use a tile suboptimally, which he needed in so many other places, especially over here. And now, with only 3 curves remaining, there are not many ways how he could fill these squares. In fact, there's only a 50-50 chance that he's going to draw 2 out of 3 curves. He could still complete this with a road monastery, creating a big field fight, of course, unifying all the fields. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. So, the Thai player gets a tile which they cannot easily use. Where exactly can they go? Probably just taking a monastery point in one way or another. Actually, yeah, you know what I think we do there? We go Anyway, we'll probably get a monastery point, but then we also need to think really, really carefully about the orientation of this tile. And maybe I would have preferred the orientation which does not leave an easy shielded tile up for grabs, because now the German is going to go here and start a new yummy 8-pointer. The purpose of this particular orientation is to actually draw something like, how do I say this? A dagger plus a splitter, or a dagger plus a Rodorito or something like this. So finally the Thai player gets a meeple back. Took him ages to get that straight line. yzemaze immediately responds with scoring, keeping his meeple majority, keeping his scoreboard lead. Red finally gets a tile to score on his own, but where exactly does he go? So he could do this, which I think is still the way, but this is also sorely tempting. We go here and we try to set up a Dorito tile to complete the monastery. Nah, it's not good enough. Okay, here's actually the plan. We go here, score quick points, and we really need to save the clock. Then we get the straight line and the road monastery, something like this. Or maybe not. Maybe we get the get with dagger here, and we get the road and then we get the road monastery like this. Yeah, it feels like red needs so many tiles for so many different places. Oh, and actually red needs the Dorito here to finish the shared city and to get themselves a meeple back and extra points. Yellow, start a new city. Pakshe gets a great tile. I mean, it's a straight line, it's nothing special, but it's something that is quite useful for him. Simply going over here, continuing the monastery and trying to put additional slight pressure on the square, setting up a monastery completion could be the way to go. He could also be inclined to go over here and try to put more direct pressure against the city, but he figured that he needs to be efficient. Quick points for the German. Still plenty of tiles that could be used by red to get a meeple back, but he just keeps drawing the more useless ones. There's really not a lot of value that he can extract from this, other than maybe going here and dropping and simply eliminating this city cap, or at least making it much harder for yellow to score. Yeah, if I think about it, it's like if yellow gets a dagger, yellow can go here. So maybe we need to block it like this. We might also do something like this, trying to pre-build along a road, looking for some sort of field invasions. Yeah, really unenviable positions for reds. It's just too many brain cells are required for this. Also, I wonder if we drop a farmer like right now, if we realize that our position is severe enough. You know what? This could actually work. So, okay, we drop a farmer here. We hope for a curve, then we hope for a dagger that would enable us to meeple this road in the future. Maybe we get some sort of road end, build a 10-point road like this, get another curve over here, a road monastery over here, and we overrun the big field by connecting this guy and this guy. Of course, all of this is contingent on us getting the right tile and our opponents just not doing anything about it. This is very interesting, and actually I think it's very smart. This move, even though it looks like it's helping yellow, is actually making it harder for yellow to complete the city. Because there are still many city plus road city caps, but there are not many city plus field city caps. Okay, that's actually really smart. So, yellow with a lead on the scoreboard. And a chance to drop a farmer somewhere, maybe. I would presume his candidate moves would be this, which makes a lot of sense. Now, actually, I don't think that red can use the road monastery over here because the big field is not in his interest anymore. He can use the tile here, perhaps. Or maybe here, trying to make an invasion a little bit harder. There's still one straight line available, so there is some value in blocking this square. There's still a crossroads, and there's still a starting tile even. So there are 3 options to connect. Red decides that a block is worth it. A dagger tile for yellow, but a dagger tile for red as well, which he should use. Yellow, of course, is threatening to complete the city off his own, but there's really isn't all that much that red can do about it, is it? So red gets himself a dagger, does not meeple the road, which I'm not sure how I feel about. Eyes gets the last Dorito. He's not going to go over here. He's probably going to continue his city, maybe going like this. That actually would be pretty smart because it would give him 2 tiles to complete it, either the starting tile or the butterfly. For the first time in this game, somehow the Thai player has the meeple minority, but they are doing short on time. It's an incredibly complicated position. Both players with still winning chances, but it's definitely a better position for yellow. There's still 2 curves available. So it's possible for Pakshe to either get her monastery meeple back or to do something like this, really. Drop a farmer here, connect like this, whilst also completing this road. So curve plus curve sequence certainly looks pretty juicy. On the other hand, with a meeple over here, maybe Pakshe could have set up a road monastery like this. In any case, in order to win this game, red will need to get himself the road monastery, just because the road monastery is so impactful. For example, yellow can simply score 6 points for it with a road. So red absolutely must draw it. But I feel like even that is not enough. He also gonna need to do something about this here city, won't he? So maybe going over here and trying to get another road tile and block the square completely would be a way to go. There's still 2 city cap that fit there, and that is a lot. So instead, red chooses to invade. Yellow gets the road monastery, but now yellow is thinking whether it's worth going over here. I still think it is. Actually, yellow might just do something like this. Red's idea here, of course, is... Well, I mean, the field is just very valuable. It's very simple as this. It's 15 points. You have to attack it at some point. Now, from yellow's perspective, you might just allow the connection just to score the points, simply because yellow still has access routes through here. And, believe it or not, through here, curve, starting tile, and butterfly can actually allow an access route way over here. Extremely unlikely, but still possible. Now the German in some time trouble. 30 seconds on his clock, not a sentence that you get to say very often. He does go for the 6 points. He decides that it is okay to concede the field invasion as long as he stays on top of the scoreboard. But a curve for Pakshe. Now, very interesting decision. What he's going to do. He could either finish his monastery, or he could actually try and win the game in a different manner by going over here, dropping a farmer like this, and trying to connect through completing his road with the last curve. Or if he doesn't get a curve, like this and like this, through the butterfly and the starting tile. The problem with that idea, I still like that idea. Well, first of all, the problem is that yzemaze gets the curve, and with that, the German will be becoming the third place finisher of the Carcassonne Champions League 2025. Certainly something that he must be very, very happy about after a narrow miss on his third place at the Mind Sports Olympiad. He also quite wisely blocks the alternative invasion route. Pakshe gets himself an inconsequential tile that could help with some field development, but one of the city caps has been drawn by yellow. He is going to complete his city. He is going to win this big. He's going to preserve his smallish field. He's going to have more field points than his opponents, but look at how precise the German is, by the way. He chose the best monastery spot on the board because it scores 4 points, and it also does not allow red to take quick points for this city, thus expanding his little farm. An immensely exciting match. The German here with the comeback win. Pakshe, rather painful loss, but still a very, very high-level matchup and a very solid accomplishment for the Thai player in his first year of participation. So let's see what the point difference is. So 20 points in is the difference, which actually looks like a lot, but really, I don't think it really is that much. Because imagine if at some point a red gets a curve. So red's going to go over here, overtake this field. So you're going to score 12 extra for 3 points turn into 15, so 12 extra. 3 points extra for the road plus a meeple back. So that's 15 and a meeple. And there are many, many places where he can take 5 points for a meeple or more. Despite this completed city, Pakshe had chances to win this game until the end. So it was a very nice fight. Going for the coin flip for the curve just did not work out this way. Close matches in Carcassonne are supposed to finish with a coin flip. This is the right way for things to happen. Always nicer to be on the winning end with the coin flip, but you know, half of the time it doesn't work out. Anyway, congratulations to both players, especially to the German. And we're going to be wrapping this up. Let's see what they have to say in the chat. Okay, just exchanging some pleasantries. No game analysis. yzemaze saying you've played an excellent season, which is true. Pakshe, as usual in his style, calls everybody bro. So the Thai Championship is going to take place in May, where Pakshe would be just by far the heavy favorite. Thailand has some other experts, but I think the next player is at least 100 rating points below Pakshe, if not more. Alright, let's just sit back and see what the players are saying to each other. Oh, that's it. They've just finished exchanging pleasantries. I thought they would, like, talk about, you know, but on move 15, if you rotate the curve the other way, then... Anyway, immensely interesting games. I'm going to be wrapping up. This is going to be my last stream of the Carcassonne Champions League season. Thank you for all of you who stuck around. Make sure to meeple the like button for the algorithm and subscribe for more competitive Carcassonne content like this. There's still the final left to go. Of course, I'm not streaming this because I'm playing in it Thursday in 2 days, 2000 UTC. I will be trying to play against someone you know who's the reigning champion. I'm gonna do my best to dethrone him. Malahheim is going to stream this in English, so you can watch the live coverage there. If it goes well, or even if it doesn't, I might make some analysis videos after this, but I can't guarantee that because there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline in any case. So yeah, I hope that you're there on Thursday. Hi, yzemaze. Congratulations on the win. Just incredibly interesting match. Slowly climbing. So first of all, 4th place at the Mind Sports Olympiad. Then 3rd place over here. Then 2nd place somewhere else. And then 1st place somewhere else. There's still multiple tournaments this year, including the World Team Carcassonne Online Championships, and if I remember correctly, then the German Championship is also not happening until autumn. They used to hold it like right before the World Championship, so in October or late September, if I'm not mistaken, but do correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, German Championship is in May. This one I did not expect. So yeah, maybe 1st place there. Who knows? Anyway, time to wrap up. Make sure to free up your calendars for Thursday. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.